it was clear, basically, we want to do it for developers. We just had no idea how this can be done. And we learned this along the way.
Hi everyone, you're listening to Scaling DevTools. I'm joined today by Felix, who is the founder of Hanko. And Hanko is an open source authentication tool that is very big on passkeys and simplicity. So Felix, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
We wanted to talk about something that you went through, which I think is one of the hardest things a startup can ever go through, which is a pivot once you've already had traction, you've already got funding, and you've already got real customers. Could you talk a bit about what that was like?
Yes, of course. We started this thing, a tool for authentication, basically targeting developers as a proprietary software in 2018. So we thought, okay, let's build a software as a service tool that solves authentication, but it does it better than Auth0 was and probably still is the biggest player in the market. What can we do better? You mentioned it. Our focus is on passkeys, so we always are coming from the direction to say, okay, let's imagine there's a world where passkeys are not only something you bolt onto your authentication solution, but it is the authentication solution that has replaced passwords, because that's the direction we're heading. So this is going to happen. We know, and we are convinced of that. So we said, okay, let's take a look at that future and build an authentication solution, basically an Auth0 for that future. And that's how we started. But I mean, somewhat inexperienced, not very familiar with the open source world. To be honest, not very familiar with the developer audience to sell to, right? This was something we haven't done before. In my previous life, I led a software agency. So we built software more for enterprise customers. Of course, the whole team were developers participating in open source in some way or another, probably many or most of them. But building an open source project, no one had done that. So we started as a proprietary company. We built the software, Hanko 1.0 as we call it now, as with a proprietary stack. Made some bad decisions also with the architecture. It didn't scale so well. The cloud model was, of course, part of it from day one. It didn't scale so well. It was really problematic at some point. But it went very well. So the passwordless authentication angle brought us some very cool leads. We had some customers. It went good, but still we at some point we said, okay, let's talk about what we're doing and where we want to go, and let's take a look at are we making the right choices and are we doing the right thing? And during those meetings with the team, we came to the point where we said, okay, we are building this piece of software for developers. Why are we not doing it open source? The best way would be to do it as an open source company or a commercial open source company. And yeah, of course, this would mean drop everything, start a new project on GitHub, basically change your whole messaging, and oh man, the code base, it is not ready for open source. We cannot show this. This is not good. And this is a few weeks went by, and at some point we said, okay, this we cannot think about it. So maybe we have to do it. And this was 2022, so last year. And we said, okay, let's do it.
Wow. And that's like such a bold decision. Like when it was going well, like what about it was like kind of leading you to make like a big decision like that?
I think why we did it is we knew we could scale this proprietary solution, I think, with a good pace, with good growth. It would take, of course, much more effort and with regards to sales and marketing. Investors were okay with that, so they were behind us, and it would have worked, but we were convinced the other way would work so much better, and not only for the go-to-market, but also for ourselves. So what is the thing you want to work on, and you have to be sure about this, otherwise you can't make it. And we knew we wanted to do the other thing. So
yeah,
but I mean, right, do something where you know it will work, or do something where you know it will work very, very well. So these two, something like that, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I feel like it's still like quite, it's all still scary, right? Like it's not kind of guaranteed, and you've got something that has customers, that has revenue. There's, the investors, as you said, the investors are happy. Like it must have still been a really kind of like gut wrenching decision.
No, it was definitely the biggest decision we ever made, and the scariest decision. But in hindsight, it was the best decision we ever made. So pivoting to open source from proprietary with the developer audience that we cater to, with the product, with the product and the market that we're in, it was the best decision we ever made. But again, you mentioned it of course wasn't simple. It wasn't easy. So this pivot did mean we had to drop the product that we had. We had paying customers. We had to call them and say, okay, we made a decision internally. It has nothing to do with you. We drop what you get from us. We will not develop it further. You will not get any new features. We will help you. We will support you. You can keep what you have alive, and we will make sure it works for you. And that's what all of them did. And no one, so that it wasn't really such an issue that we imagined before. So it worked out pretty well, I have to say. And thank you very much to the customers that went this way with us. But, we didn't know it would work out this way. So, it was very scary, these calls. And, also we had started building, sales. We had started building marketing, for this product that we had, and going forward, convincing the investors it's a good idea to drop everything that we worked so hard for such a long time and start from scratch, because we want to be open source. That of course was very hard. And so, again, this also worked out pretty well. I think everyone is happy with the decision now, but at that point this was some very hard calls to make. And, one outcome, of course, was we had to become a bit more capital efficient for the phase we decided to enter or to re-enter, where we had to build a product and not have anything we can sell, because we didn't want to sell or invest any more into selling the old product. It wouldn't make sense. We didn't want to split the focus on with the small developer team that we had. We wanted to focus on the new thing. We figured that's the only way this can work. So, we had to cut the team basically in half at that point. And aside from the hard calls with the customers, the calls with the investors, then of course we had to make those decisions with the team. It's probably the worst part of it, I have to say. And not everyone could join us on our new journey. Everyone is happy now, I have to say. So it's no one had any problems finding a new job. We are still friends with everyone, so it's all good. but this was, of course, not easy, especially for me as the bearer of the bad news.
Yeah. Is there any like kind of advice you would give to like another founder kind of going for a similar?
It's definitely transparency. So you can't bullshit your team. You can't come up with some shady explanations or some. I made it. I think I made it fully transparent to everyone what we were doing. What are the reasons for why we are doing things. In some form, it was a team decision to do this. So still, we had issues with motivation after that, building the same thing over again. There were some hard times, even months in when we started the open source project. But ultimately, it was also a team decision, and I had to make sure that at least the remaining folks know exactly what's going on, why decisions have been made that way. And I think everyone was on board with that. And those who couldn't join us, I think, also understood.
Yeah. In terms of the people that stayed around, like going through a pivot and you've kind of, I guess, got to before you had customers, and it's kind of easy to be motivated when it's like, okay, this customer asked us for this, like how, when you're rebuilding, and I guess there's like a long period of development, and you've just gone through this pivot. What did you do to kind of like motivate the team? And
I think a developer until a certain point is always happy with building the next iteration of something they started, and it came out, it works, but it's not beautiful. So now you have the chance to do it the right way. It's probably not the right way, but a better way. So this helps, I think. This helped us.
Everyone wishes they could start again to some extent.
Yeah, it helped. It helped a lot, I think, during that time. But still, there were design meetings and so workshops around certain. I mean, some of it is pretty complex, and we talked about it. Then it came to our mind, oh man, we talked about this 2 years ago, and now we're talking about it again. Of course, the first approach, it wasn't very well documented here and there, so we had to do it again, basically. And so these were moments that were not so cool. But I have to say, and this is like, also this was like the reward for the decision. It came quick because, I mean, it may have been a too low bar or a too low goal, but we figured, okay, in 6 months we want to reach 100 stars on GitHub. I can smile at that now, but it was, I mean, 100. It means 100 people all over the world find interesting what we do and give us this form of appreciation. So let's try to solve this. Let's try to bring it to 100 stars. And we have never done it before, so we didn't know. And then we built the first 0.1 beta basically, and we launched it, and it went to 100 pretty quickly. And then we launched it on Product Hunt, spent some time on I don't know, creating a video or some screenshots, came up with the text, the copy for the message there, and it blew through 1,000 stars basically in 2 or 3 days. So
that's amazing.
This is not the traction. You get used to this pretty quickly. Then you have the flats, of course, again. So, but this was so cool, and this gave us a lot of motivation. It was very rewarding to see this, to get all the people coming into our community, asking questions, bringing praise. Basically, they like what we do. And we never had that before with the proprietary solution. It's completely different. It's completely different. Of course, you work with your customers and you get like the appreciation there, but it's a different relationship. They pay you probably a lot sometimes. So they have high expectations. They may be demanding, and the dynamic changes in an open source project with the community. And of course, there's also bad apples, but not really for us until now. It was pretty rewarding.
Yeah. Well, you're actually like very uniquely placed to maybe answer this, but could you talk about like the typical adoption of your customers previously versus your customers today?
Yeah. So before that, we had like 10% was inbound because they somewhere found us, and 90% was network sales outbound that we had to push basically our thing into the market. And it's typical top-down motion, basically. At some point, developers were involved, and this has always been the good point. But we had to get from the top to the developer, basically. And this, of course, has completely changed. And we decided, and this is something we reevaluate every few weeks. But for now, we will completely focus on catering to the individual developer. Basically, our product at the moment is priced and is targeted at. Of course, we have a commercial product built on top of the open source project. At some point we still need to make money, but this commercial product is targeted at is basically indie developers, someone starting a new project and want to solve authentication. It's very cheap. It's $9 per month. You can as an individual pay for that, no problem. And this is like the complete opposite than before. And of course, you need to reach a lot of folks when you want to make something successful that way. And we will do sales and top down in the future. But currently, it's not a niche, but our way to go is through the individual developer and make them love us by really focusing on the needs of such individuals, and not become defocused by talking to banks about their 2FA and so on. I did all that in the past, but it's not really helpful for what we try to achieve at the moment.
So it's like trying to create the product that appeals to like a broad range of people, rather than like a couple of enterprise customers. Specific stuff to one or two German banks or something.
Yeah, probably we had in the past, I don't know for sure, but it felt like we had the opportunity to do that, to focus on that and make some good money with that. But ultimately, it was not what we wanted to do, and I think we could have been quicker in deciding that. But it's very tempting when you have these opportunities dangling in front of you, and I don't know. Maybe others would have probably tried to follow that path, but we didn't. We wanted to build a product for the developer, and that was ironically the plan from day one. So when we are very very long time ago, almost when I had this vision of building the auth solution for passkeys, as I was talking about, it was clear basically we want to do it for developers. We just had no idea how this can be done, and we learned this along the way.
Yeah, and now you've found it. So now you kind of talked a bit about, you kind of did the product hunt launches and you flew through 1,000 GitHub stars. How have you been growing since then?
Yeah, so the first rush of basically growing the community, that was really cool and I think gave us a very good foundation. And we're now in the phase of building on top of that foundation. The first iteration of the project was you could get a login, you could integrate it in, say, depending on your capabilities, 10, 30 minutes, you were up and running, depending on the framework, probably. We made some decisions, how we make it that simple. It involves web components. It's quite complex stuff we have to tackle. And, we have paying customers on Hanko Cloud, of course, thousands of developers, thousands of free instances. So we have this free tier up to 1,000 monthly active users. I think it's free. So this is all there and we improve it every day. And now we're in the phase where we say, okay, how do we bring this, what we have now, to the next level? And there's a certain expectation around the product we are building because it's not something that's completely new, right? I mean, I think you said it in another podcast. Auth is solved, right?
Yeah,
I don't think it is, but there are ways how you can do it, of course, and some of them are very good. But I think we bring a new and unique angle to it. And now we have to make sure it lives up to these expectations. This involves like you wanna support sign-in with Apple and Google and all the others. You have to make sure if someone signs up with the email address and then clicks on sign-in with Google, this works out of the box. You need support for mobile apps, for example. So we're building the SDKs for that at the moment. Organizations is something. So if you're building a software as a service product, you have a point where your customers have maybe they are selling to businesses. So these customers have some expectations to the authentication solution, and so these kinds of use cases we of course have to take care of and have to deliver on, and that's what we're focusing on right now. We're restructuring, for example, the way the front end and the back end work, the API works, make it much cooler. It's a project we're working on at the moment. For someone who doesn't want to use our web components, for example, who wants to build their own stuff, still the API can provide so much value. And with the new API that we're working on at the moment, it will be very, very cool building your own authentication on top of Hanko API. And still it will be very quick, but not that opinionated. You can do whatever you want with it.
So it sounds like most of your kind of focus is on
product,
right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and I guess because you have people coming in the door through word of mouth or
and this is great. This is what we want to double down on. And how can this be done? Of course, the product has to be very, very good. This is, I think, without that, it would never work. And then you have to make noise around it, and that's the other thing. Mostly I'm working on, and this is where we also start hiring at the moment. So we need more eyes and more brains on the stuff that goes out to the developers that probably need us but never heard of us. So we have to change this.
Yeah. So tell me like how you like. It's kind of an interesting point where you're like. We spoke about this very briefly before the call, but like, how are you thinking about who you need to bring onto the team at this point? Because right now it's all engineers and yourself, right?
Yeah, it's. We also have Mia on the team. She's doing all the designs, so it has to look good as well, of course. But that's it. So we are focusing on engineering and developers. Probably also because that's what we know best. That's how we act when we don't think about it. And so I think the next logical step is hiring So the job description we have on our page, it's called DevRel Engineer, Developer Relations Engineer. It's probably more an engineer that likes to communicate and maybe write something and share the thoughts they have with the world. So someone that can help us build the thing, but bring it to the people. And why the engineering aspect of it? So right, DevRel, they are, I think, the most folks out there for DevRel are probably not the strongest engineers. I don't know, but maybe so.
We're going to get some letters of complaint here. But
I'm sorry for that. And I think I take it back, right? It's not the strongest engineers, but it's like the
it's focus, maybe
the focus, and also what you want to do. It doesn't involve hundreds of hours of coding. It maybe involve writing a blog post or making a video, and this is very, very valuable. But the background needs to be technical. That's what I want to say. So. Because the audience is technical, and it's very hard to convince developers when you're not one of them, basically. So this is why I think it's better to have this engineering background and work on the docs, work on the SDKs, and then grow into this communication role.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how would you think about them being successful? Like, what would you tell them that you want them to kind of achieve in, say, like the first 6 months or a year?
Yeah, I mean, of course you can put out metrics like a certain number of blog posts and so on. But I think in the end, it's this intangible thing. Developer love, right? We want to create developer love, and whatever works is good. So it can also be like organizing a hackathon as part of an event, for example. But I think that's why I'm stressing this engineering part so much. I think the most important thing is that your SDKs are great, that your documentation is great, and that the developer journey, the developer experience, when someone finds you, someone tries your product, this has to be in the best possible state it can be. So I would always focus on investing here and then talk about it, right?
Yeah. It's I feel like it could be a whole other discussion. That I feel like it's kind of like a paradoxical role in a sense that, like, and I think about this a lot as well, is that that part you mentioned about the empathy and stuff, and like, it's like, how do you have that empathy and that understanding and connection when you're not, like, smashing out features and fixing bugs, which is what I guess the majority of developers are doing.
Yeah.
And even spending time on like SDKs and stuff, I guess you become like a very specific type of skill set. And I feel like it's really hard, because it's like almost like the person you want, it would be their first role, because once they get really good at that, they're maybe more served at like a bigger company where you have a specialist rather than someone that's like in the last 2 years has been like, working as, just like a standard kind of developer. It's a really interesting thing.
Yeah. I'm talking to some very cool folks at the moment. We made some first steps together already. So it looks very promising, but it is, it's not that simple. Of course, it's not that simple. Developing things, focus on the development. That's what we know and what we can do all the time. But building on top of that and finding people who want to support us, getting it out. That's the challenge at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. Felix, I think we coming to the end, if there was one thing that you would tell to a DevTool founder, something that you've learned along the way, what would it be?
What would it be? I think it is good to think about the commercial aspect of it. So DevTool founder doesn't necessarily have to mean you want to make money with it, but I think to sustain it, it's probably a good idea to do that and to think about how you can make that work, and then make the decisions that will lead you to it. I think that's, even if they are very, very hard, even if that means going out of your comfort zone and hiring folks that you have no idea how you can do that. But there are so many ways. You are probably in so many Discord communities or Slack communities. You can share your vision. You can share your conviction, and you will find. It may take a while, but you will find like-minded people who will join you, and then you can build a company on top of that, even if it's stressful. I'm not I will not lie about it. There are ups and downs to it, but I think that's I think what I want to share.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just before we go, if you're interested in Hanko, then you can find Hanko at hanko.io. And interestingly, to anyone that doesn't know, a Hanko is what they use in Japan for signatures. And I have friends in Japan, and if you don't bring your Hanko with you, it's like a stamp, then you can't like open a bank account and stuff. And I think it's a great name for an authentication company.
Cool that you're bringing it up. It's a very unique name, and I hope it makes sense, right? A Hanko signature and the passkey stuff that we are so in love with. It is based on cryptographic signatures. That's how the name came to be. And we stick with it because it's cool.
Yeah, I think much more secure than the original Hankos as well.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone for listening, and thanks Felix for joining. And we'll be back soon.
Thank you, Jack.